Call this meeting to order. Would you please all rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, thank you all for coming this evening. Everyone is present. We have two remote. I have no letters for open forum. Is that correct, Martha? There have been no letters for open forum. Before we go on to approve the agenda, I would like to make a change. Under new business, letter I, 2021-24 superintendent contract, I would like to remove that from the agenda this evening. We were waiting for some legal language that we did not receive coming forward for tonight's meeting. And I want to make sure we have that all correct before bringing it to the board. So that will come back at a later meeting. However, this doesn't mean that we're not going to offer Dr. Stallo another contract, another 3-year contract. We are looking forward to having her spend her next 3 years with us. But due to a legal technicality, we are going to hold off. So sorry.
Thank you.
But we'll take care of that technicality and bring it back. So with that change, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda. So made. By Stacy, second.
Second.
By Mary, did you say it? Enrique. Okay. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, roll call. Mary?
Aye.
Aye. Stacy?
Aye.
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 Melissa?
Aye.
Enrique?
Aye.
That motion carries 7-0. Now we'll move into the truth and taxation portion of our meeting with Julie Sink.
Good evening. Tonight we will be talking about our truth and taxation hearing, and we will be certifying at the end the levy certification. On this agenda is our tax levy calendar, our basic school funding, factors contributing to the change in the levy, our certification for 2021, some graphical analysis, and our revised budget. We've talked about this several times, but for school districts, we certify our levy in 2022, which is now. It gets paid throughout the calendar year of 2021, but the district doesn't recognize those funds until the 21-22 school year. And so we're actually doing things a little ahead of what other governmental entities do. And so most of the time they're approving the levy certification and their budget is based on that for next year. We're actually doing a year ahead. So authority for school levies, a school levy, tax levy must be either set by state formula or voter approved. The basic formula for calculating state aid is taking the authorized total revenue minus our local property taxes, and the remainder is mainly state aid. So some factors impacting our tax change for the district, some things that could drive our local decisions, a change in levies determined by state formula, change in state ratio, sales ratio, and the laws mandating code compliance, and then issues determined by district voters. So if we were to bring a bond referendum or an excess levy referendum or a capital projects or tech levy forward, those would impact the levy certification, and some local factors that affect how those are applied, inflationary pressures on real estate market abatements, property improvements not yet previously taxed, which in a growing district that happens, change in individual assessed market value, and sometimes there's changes in classification, such as a homestead to a rental, and it changes the tax impact for that property. What is included in our levy certification? We do have our voter-approved referendums. Our levy set by state formula, so you can see the list there, our equity, our operating capital, transition, community service, our LTF, long-term facility maintenance, and then those authorized by state based on local need. So reemployment, safe schools, achievement and integration, career and technical, facility leases, integration, QComp, and OPEB. Factors contributing to the levy change this year, we did have an increase in our adjusted net tax capacity by 7.2% and an increase in the referendum market value of 7.1%. We also have decreasing pupil units, and when we originally had the preliminary levy for this, that was based on what we thought our October 1 numbers were going to be. I think it's even less than that. We'll see adjustments in future years that will lower our levy certification because of that. So they'll make adjustments in future years. So you can see our adjusted net tax capacity and when that dip was during our last recession, and it's come back up and exceeded that. The last year that we have data for is, of course, last year of 2019. And the same holds true for our referendum market value analysis. You see that dip, and then last year we saw that increase of that 6.1%. Here is our enrollment history trend. You can see this year we see that small dip that we have for our current year. We've been a growing district for many years, and you can see that increase over the last several years. Our Pay 21 levy certification, it has changed very slightly from the preliminary levy in September. You can see our those things that are adjusting our levy certification. Our local optional has increased. Our equity levy and the transition levy, operating capital levy, they're pretty stable. Long-term facility maintenance is pretty stable as well. We did see a reduction in our levy referendum, and that is because our pupil counts have gone down. QComp is pretty stable as well. At reemployment, we did see an increase in that one, simply because we will have some of reemployment insurance to be repaid. Safe schools levy, career and technical, lease facilities, those have gone up simply because of our space at min caps. We did see an increase in achievement and integration because the board approved an increase to the maximum for our achievement and integration levy. Post-employment benefits, we aren't levying for those at this time because we have reached our maximum liability. We have not reached our maximum implicit rate liability for OPEB, but we have for our actual liability. Facility and equipment bond adjustment and prior year adjustments. So you can see that our general fund levy certification is going up to 4.27%. If we look at how it affects community education, you can see that is increasing, and that's mainly because of our extended day disabled program. Dollar-wise, it's very small, but because that's a small program, comparatively to the general fund, that increase is higher. And then our debt service is going up to 2.59%, and that debt service is to repay the bonds that we have for the buildings that the community voted on. So overall, you can see each of these, our total general fund, our total community service fund, and our total debt service. The three together are a 3.64% increase. You can see how that gets split up. Majority of it is voter approved. A small percentage of it is state determined. And when we say state determined, that's the legislature determines how much the district can levy. Really, the district doesn't have much of a choice on what they can levy. Those local items, you do have an opportunity to levy, such as the achievement and integration and those types of things. Otherwise, the legislature pretty much tells school districts how they can levy. And it really is based a lot on enrollment. And so that is how our school district levies are determined. We do show our 10-year levy history, and you can see we did have 1 year that it went up significantly, and that was the year that the community voted on the additional buildings in the district and the operating referendum. And you can see since then, it's been fairly small. We've kept it over the last 10 years under 5%. I think that's a pretty good record for the school district over the life of that, outside the 1 year that there was a vote. I added this slide, estimated tax, and these are estimated tax impacts. It really just depends on what happens individually for your home and your property or your business in the district. But you can see I've given us some examples. Really, there's not a lot of change in, even though that we are increasing the levy certification by 3.64%. Our net tax capacity, adjusted net tax capacity, and the referendum market value rates are increasing higher than that. So most of the time people are not seeing a change in the school district's levy on their individual levy, property tax, I should say. Also, I've included what we're anticipating the school board to approve later in the meeting for our revised budget. Because it's part of our truth in taxation, we have to present a budget. Just as a reminder that what you're voting on tonight for the truth in taxation affects next year's budget. We still have to present a budget, so we always present our current year budget, but the impact isn't to our current year budget because we have not developed our budget for next year yet. We always use our current year budget. So you can see our revised budget both for the general fund and all other funds. Any questions? I went through that fairly quickly.
Any questions from the board? Okay. Normally we would have public able to attend our meeting, but this year, being the year of COVID, it is being held virtually. So if there's any resident out there that wishes to submit comments regarding the presentation this evening, they're welcome to do that tonight up until we begin the new business portion of our meeting. And you can send those emails to mwalz@priorlakesavage.k12.mn.us. If you're submitting a question, please remember to put in your full name and home address. If those things are missing, we will not be able to read them at the meeting. If we do get any emails, I will read them before the vote. So you have until the beginning part of the new business section of our agenda this evening. So, having said that, also the meeting link is on our website, and the email address I just quoted is on the website as well. So if you didn't get it, check our website. Okay, thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
Move on to the consent agenda. These are items that are considered routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion with no separate discussion. Under financials, we have the check wire transfer disbursement summary, wire transfer, EFT, and ACH banking activity, bank reconciliation statement for the month of October 2020, building bond investment reports, monthly wire detail, monthly health dental wire detail, monthly check detail, monthly ACH detail, the approval of the school board minutes for the regular meeting on November 9th, special board meeting for canvassing on November 13th, and the study session on November 23rd. Personnel items, candidates for employment, resignations, terminations, and non-renewals is listed. And that's it. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So made.
By Jonathan. Second?
Second.
By Mary. Roll call. Mary?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Enrique?
Aye.
That motion carries 7-0. Thank you. We have no resolution for acceptance of gifts this evening, so we'll move into Laker Pride with, Terry, did you have something to say first?
I do, actually. I'm going to invite
Principal
Principal
Glenn.
Glenn to come forward. Learning within the dial has certainly forced Prior Lake Savage Area Schools teachers and staff to reshape their instruction and services. At Jeffers Pond, the location for instruction has also been reshaped. So what Principal Glenn is going to share with us tonight is some of the highlights of outdoor learning, as well as now as we have transitioned into distance learning. The Jeffers Pond staff and Patrick Glenn as the principal there certainly are telling a story that is happening at Jeffers Pond, and we celebrate that staff as well as staff across the district who are doing similar things. So with that, I'll hand it over to Patrick. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stahl. Yes, I think I represent the elementaries wholeheartedly here today. Thank you, school board members, Lee Shimmick, Melissa Anger, thank you very much for your service. We appreciate that. So from outdoor learning to distance learning, the constant is learning. That was our goal. Every classroom outside every day was our ultimate goal at Jeffers Pond this year. I would normally be here with Sherry Seidensticker, kindergarten teacher, and Ann Nelson. They would have been a part of this presentation, if not the presentation, because they are the driving force behind our outdoor committee at Jeffers Pond. I met with Sherry in June in preparation for this committee to launch, how do we make sure that we get outside every day? And I'm like my colleagues did the same thing. So I'm just going to share with you a few things of kind of how we evolved this year. Of course, most schools, if not all the schools, have a picnic area on site that allows them to be outside. JP especially has the park next door in the shelter. It is used wildly every day, if not every other day. It is accessible by the bridge so quickly. The Boulder Garden is a hop, skip, and a jump just from the corner of the building out back. It's a perfect spot for social distancing. But how do you get 22 classrooms in spaces outside to do it every day? Well, we created things like this then this year. So this is kind of our sit spot that was created. This is Mrs. Tinquist's classroom, and if you were to drive by Jeffers Pond, you would see this array of stumps that have been placed in different spots around the building. We even came up with a map and identified by grade level where outdoor learning was going to happen this year. So important for people to be outside and the opportunity to be unmasked at that time as well. So you can kind of point out the blue X's there at the top of the pond are where the fifth grade held their outdoor classrooms, the farthest away from the building this year. And so each classroom had their area and had an opportunity to go to that area every day with nobody interrupting them in that spot. We did some professional development at the beginning of this year by our outdoor committee on what is safe to be outside, safe behavior for our kids, and everything to do with the wildlife that's there. Studying, probably more importantly, the poisonous plants that are around on occasion. Let's keep kids away from them. Safe climbing habits when we're in the woods, things like that. It was a wonderful, some PD for us. Here's a little bit of what presentation looks like outside. We have Mrs. Hagman, the fifth grade teacher, up there on the left, and Ms. Tinquist. They have their white chart paper that's out there. They hauled it outside, and there's a wagon, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So they have an opportunity to present no matter where they're at. Here is Mrs. Dickey, fifth grade teacher, with a science lesson with fifth graders. This is Mrs. Hohenstein, fifth grade teacher, and she's got her kids in her area. They're doing a language arts lesson that day that I was out there. And of course, here's Ann Nelson with a globe in the middle of the woods, right? Talk about hauling your materials outside to do a social studies lesson. Here is Miss Dickey doing read aloud. Right outside of my office, actually. I could see her on daily come out with the kids and do the read aloud. We were so fortunate, the PTC this year, we had planned on some more flexible seating options inside the building, but in June, when this committee got launched, we made a plea to them, can we please redirect those funds? And every classroom was granted the opportunity to have one of those carts, wagons. Up in the upper right-hand corner is a lanyard that we attached to all of the masks, so if they took them off, it stayed with them and they didn't lose them if they were outside. And then we had a first aid kit that went along with those supplies. Here's some of our seating options. Of course, the young gal that's sitting on the stump, that was popular. Some of the plastic items that could be brought outside. The foam mats that allowed you to some comfort or a barrier between a wet ground that we have. PTC helped us with that. And Christy Weigel even took one of her old bathroom towels, put it in a Ziploc bag, and is reusing that as a total option just for some of her kids in her classroom. Of course, students could bring chairs from home, and this young gentleman, he brought his when he came. He's a fifth grader out in their spot. The kids love to sit on the ground, or you can see them in the trees. Partner work happens on stumps, or it happens in the tree, on the log. Here's kindergarten. Now, they even got involved in this too, and here's Miss Seidensticker with her kindergartners. They've got clipboards, school boxes, paper. She's doing a lesson with them, and about a month later, here she is again. This is the day that we got 8 or 9 inches of snow It was just starting to come down that morning. And that is a cookie sheet with magnets, and she is doing a 10 frame and learning and teaching about groups of 10. The students are using their stumps as their desks as they're on their knees. Of course, they're dealing with their mittens, and it's a challenge, but they can bring the manipulatives outside. Learning is happening outside. She did the same math lesson outside that she would do inside the building on that particular day. And then we all had to help push the cars up the hill at the end of the day at JP when the snow had hit by the end of that day. Here's our PTC October meeting. Somebody took a moment, one of the parents that was there, and took a picture of the Mrs. Tinquist sit spot facing the sun as it was going down in October, and it was a beautiful sight. So we've been able to use those places for just more than outdoor learning opportunities. It's been a wildly courageous year to be able to do that. I don't think we're going to turn back. I just don't see it. We're so fortunate. Some of our teachers actually participate in what's called the Outdoor Learning Exchange. And teachers participate on a monthly online meeting with teachers from across the country, Texas, New York, DC, Illinois, Indiana. They do Google Meets and learn about how do I bring curriculum outside? Because it's a tricky thing. You have to work through this. It's not something that you can do real quickly, I think. You kind of learn in stages of how to do it. Sherry and Ann are two teachers that do it exceptionally well. How to stay warm outside, how to engage learners in hybrid and distance learning, some of the topics that they've been engaging across the country. So that's a little description about outdoor learning, but now we've pivoted to distance learning. And so here's Ms. Krauser and Mr. Straight, and they are teaching, and I came and I took a picture of them while they were interacting with kids. This is what distance learning looks like. And you'll notice they have a dock cam. Ms. Krauser's, you can see kind of that neck kind of tilted, and Mr. Straight has his. That has been a very important tool that we have purchased and utilized into our distance learning just recently. The DLA teachers have been using that since the beginning and kind of mentored us into that, but it's become a very important tool. So thankful to the district, our buildings, and our PTCs who helped come up with the funds so that all the teachers could get those. Here's another example I think that's important. Distance learning sometimes requires two screens. So they've got their laptops on their desks with their computers. They're able to use the dock cam to demonstrate what they're doing while they're interacting with the kids on their laptops. So there's a way for them to see everything very clearly. They've kind of figured it out in about a week. Of course, here's Read Aloud, Mrs. Weigel, and Mrs. Sandow's getting into it. She couldn't help but to smile as I was taking a picture as she's showing the students the picture in the book that she's reading out loud. Now, the students are also engaged. We've got about 75 students on site right now with Kids Company, and this is a typical picture of a student engaged during their school day. And we use the cafeteria as well as their social distance. We've also gotten a little creative too. Here's a picture of a first grader. He is doing squats for his Phi Ed class. Mr. Von Fisher is on the screen down there playing a game with them, and he had to do squats as part of his job. And then we have a first grader here who's created a little fort under his desk. And his iPad is there. He's got his headphones and his microphone on, and he's doing his lessons in the afternoon with a creative way. We've been open. We've been working with our Kids Company people to provide the best opportunity that we can for our students that are on site. And there's been a few challenges along the way, but we're there trying to solve them all the time. If you can build a fort as a kid, I think you're pretty happy. So I want to thank you for the opportunity just to share a little bit about outdoor learning and distance learning at the same time. Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick. Thanks for all you're doing. Thanks again, Patrick. Chair Shimmick, would you join me, please? And Melissa, as you're home, I want you to know that this Laker Pride, thank you, is extended to you as well. The role of the school board members is to set the vision for the school district. And as Patrick was just sharing, a glimpse of this year, both with outdoor learning and eSTEM, as well as putting the district in a position, especially with technology and instructional excellence, to support that pivot that we just took place. It's because of the role of board members and the vision that they set to make us, to move forward, to ensure equitable student achievement and high levels of learning for all students. So, Patrick, that couldn't have been a better introduction. Tonight, as Lee Shimmick and Melissa Enger have their last board meeting, I want to be sure that we have an opportunity to recognize, to celebrate, and to pay some tribute to the two of you for the years of service that you've provided. Melissa Enger was initially elected to fulfill a 2-year vacancy on the board, and she began her tenure in January of 2015. Melissa was reelected to a 4-year term and has served on the board since that time. Thank you, Melissa, for your 6 years of service to our school district. Lee Shimmick was elected to a 4-year term beginning in 2002. Lee remained on the board until December of 2014, and she took a 2-year break.
I was done.
Oh, you were done. Well, it was a break, is what we all saw. And then you returned to the board after the break in 2017. You were first appointed chair in 2004, served in that role or the role of vice chair clerk throughout your tenure. Lee served on the Prior Lake Savage Area Schools Board for 18 years. Thank you for all you've done for our students and staff and community. Serving on the board is never an easy task, but it's especially difficult during referendums, boundary changes, and global pandemics. And I want to thank you for everything that you've done to guide us, to guide me, to support me on the journey of leading a district through this time. I also want to extend appreciation to those in your life that you love, because I know that the long meetings, I know that the phone calls, the email responses, all take time away from the people and the things that you love to do. And your commitment and service to our school district has taken time away from them. So please be sure that you're also thanking your families for lending us, you and your talents and your love for kids for a little while, and know that the impact that you have is going to be long-lasting. The two of you have served during a time of a lot of change in our district, and you're always going to be able to drive around town and see some amazing learning spaces that were created because of you and your leadership. So I want to thank you for your service to the school district. I want to thank you for your support of me. And I appreciate you very much. And before, I also have a bell for each of you. I think this is your second bell.
It is.
All right, so we've got a bell for you. Melissa, we are going to get yours to you as well. And then before we close this, I want to be sure to hand it off to a couple other board members. But before we do that, please join me in recognizing Melissa and Liz.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
And I think you're going to speak later, you wanted to?
I wanted to speak later, yes.
Okay, and Melissa, I don't know if you wanted to say anything or if you want others to speak first? Okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
I'm gonna sit down. Okay, yeah, go ahead. I wanted to thank, both of you just for, serving. It's been a pleasure to serve the last numerous years, with you. I do want to throw out a little extra thank you to Lee, just in the sense of coming back on the board when I think, we were kind of faced with a lot of challenges coming up and had unexpected challenges as well. And I think your leadership and knowledge of the district through so many years of experience has really been invaluable to all of us. And I just want to thank you because you're someone I kind of lean on and look to. And I, since I was a newbie on the board in 2011, you're the person I kind of look to. So I'm going to miss that. I wish you and Steve the best. And I know you're going to relish and you're going to be around in your role now as a Laker grandparent, because you got a lot of grandkids in the district. So, which that'll be really fun for you. So thank you. Thank you. Thank
I'll just take a minute too to thank both of you. Someone who's only 2 years into her term, I've looked up to both of you to help me learn the ropes. And you've both shown me what passion and commitment can do when you're serving your committee or serving the board and the school district. And Melissa, I'll always remember you as my partner next to me around the table pre-COVID times. And I'd like to thank you for the extra passion and energy you always bring. I've never heard you sound tired at a meeting. You've just taught me you stand up, you use your voice, and you believe in what you're doing. And Lee, I want to thank you. First of all, I would like to just make a note. Lisa, she is done. And if I translate that correctly, that means we'll see her in 2 years. Just so that gets recorded. I also want to thank you because you were tireless in your mentoring. I could call you at any time with questions, and there were several times with big issues where you said, I'm going into the district office, why don't you join me, and we'll work with the admin team. And we would pour hours into reviewing boundary maps or curriculum issues or what have you. And you never made me feel like I was wanting for anything, and you always supported me when I needed it. And I have often said to you, and I will repeat publicly, that the amount of time and energy you have put into the board not only inspires me, but actually just blows me away. Because there are so many times I don't know how you have found the energy to keep putting in, engaging our community, keeping us up to speed, and working with the administrative team. So I'm grateful to both of you. I wish you both the best going forward. And I'm sure that we will stay in touch in the years to come. And we'll see you in 2 years, Lee.
No, but thank you. Are we done now?
I'll chime in and add, again, appreciate and respect the contributions that both of you have made. Melissa, from the time that I became involved with things dealing with the school, from the first referendum to whatever, you were a face that whenever you would see me, whether it was at a football game or it was at Bonfire or another establishment in town or somewhere, you would always make a point to come and say hello. And that's appreciated, and that it just makes people feel like getting involved when the folks who are involved take the time to say hello and greet you. And I appreciate the fact that in our meetings, you have always felt comfortable expressing your opinions and the viewpoints that may or may not have been shared by a lot of others all need to be heard. And so you have brought value to this board in your time here, and appreciate that. Lee, excuse me, your leadership has been appreciated over the course of the past 2 years. I think my biggest takeaway from having seen you lead this board is that it's just about, it has never for a moment been about you. It's the reason you came back when you were called upon. It has been about the district. It has been about our students. And while at times I think you have a persona of being the heavy and being the tough person, underneath that chair, there is a heart that is as big as anyone's, and it beats as strongly for our students as anyone. And so I appreciate that that's always been your, in the end, that's the foundation of why you are here. And I appreciate your leadership.
Thank you. Okay, are we done? We'll move on to personnel. Thank you, everybody. I do have a few parting comments, but I'm not quite ready to say them yet. So we'll move on to personnel with Jim Quorum, the educational support staff approval. Well, my friends would be disappointed if I didn't say something. They've already told me that, but I'm not ready yet.
Chair Shimmick, board members, Dr. Stallo, tonight I bring a couple of personnel items to you. The first one is additional staffing for 2021. And this is in relation to last month's approval. We were a little hasty in HR when it came to the new East African cultural liaison. We thought it was going to be 5 hours a day, just like the EL liaison is, and come to find out from teaching and learning that that's not the case. There was the need and the money from the Achievement Integration Grant to bump both of those positions up to 8 hours. So since it's a additional expenditure, we bring those forward for your approval.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the educational support staffing requests?
So made.
By Michael, second.
Second.
By Stacy. Any comments or questions? Do one of you have one?
I don't have anything.
I was just going to clarify that, again, this, even between either 3, 5, or 8 hours a day, that this is fully, as stated here, funded by the grant from the MDE?
Correct.
Okay, and also, are we voting on both of these or just one at a time? Both? Okay,
Both together.
right. And same thing with the English language learner cultural liaison. So there is no change whatsoever in our budget expenditures or anything like that. It is fully
Exactly
funded.
as stated, yep.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, roll call. Mary?
Aye.
Michael? Stacy? Aye. Jonathan?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
that motion carries 7-0. Next.
The second personnel items are the 2022 terms and conditions of employment and agreements, fairly extensive list, several pages long, and this is just about all of them. We have a few left, but this is the majority of them. They were all within the board parameters when it came to terms, and so it's my recommendation that the proposed terms and conditions and agreements between the school board and the employees below are approved.
Do I have a motion to approve the 2022 agreements and terms and conditions of employment as described by Jim and the list that's in our packet?
So made.
By Mary, second.
Second.
By Stacy. Any comments or questions? Okay, roll call. Mary?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Aye. Jonathan?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Enrique?
Aye.
That motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Jim. Now move on to unfinished business. This is the Prior Lake Savage Area Commitment to Equity and Inclusion. This resolution was presented to the board at the November study session by, I believe, a good part of your committee came forward. So there were people from the community as well as board members that were here for that. I'm going to turn it over to the committee members from the board that are here now for any other comments before we take a vote.
Great, thank you. As you mentioned, the resolution was brought forward on November 23rd at the board study session. And we had with us 4 people in attendance who represented the stakeholder groups that we've been working with the last several months. And they took the opportunity to introduce themselves, their connection to the district, and why they chose to collaborate in the creation of this resolution. And then in their voices, they read the resolution to the board and those listening online. We are not going to repeat that multi-step process for going to the vote tonight. However, for the benefit of those watching or those who did not hear, I would like to just do an abbreviated presentation of what I presented on November 23rd so that people understand before the resolution is read the work and steps that went into creating it. And I'm just going to share with you the proverb I used at the study session. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And what we're bringing forward tonight is the work of many who have traveled far together. It's not the work of Stacy, Enrique, Dr. Stallo, and myself. It is the work of several people who represent various stakeholder groups in our district and our community. It is the work of teachers, students, staff, parents, administrators, and community members. The district has both strategic directions and priority work committed to equity and inclusion. This is not something new for our district, and we will be hearing more about that work later tonight in this meeting. As the Public Engagement Committee, one of our priorities was working on finding ways to increase engagement with stakeholders who might help us take a closer look at district equity and inclusion work, especially our work as a board. Then, School was shut down in March with COVID-19, which slowed our progress as the district had to focus its attention on dealing with the need for planning to a switch to distance learning. However, as the pandemic timeline extended, one of the results was the highlighting of disparities in the world, both for schools and communities. And then the murder of George Floyd took place on May 25th in our own backyard. After that, school districts in our area started issuing resolutions, speaking out against racism and supporting equity and inclusion efforts. And while our district under Dr. Stallo's leadership did reach out to our community, as a board, we did not issue any public statements at that time. So as the committee charged with community engagement, the four of us realized that we could not put off our commitment to engaging stakeholders to address these issues. We reached out to 9 stakeholders with a connection to the district and invited them to attend what we called a listening session on June 10th. We simply opened the floor to them and we listened. They shared both personal stories about how the events unfolding impacted them as individuals and their ideas for what the district might do to better address equity, inclusion, and racism. One of the clearest messages that came from the group that night was a direct ask that the PLSAS board make a public statement about where it stands on these issues and the direction of the work that the board would commit to doing. The administration, teachers, and staff were doing this work, but the board itself had not made a clear statement. We began collecting and reading the work being done by other districts in the area of equity and inclusion. And rather than just edit a resolution or public statement from another district, we decided to pull ideas together that seemed specific to our Prior Lake Savage community. After that initial research and drafting, we decided that it was imperative that we reach out to a larger stakeholder group for input in assembling this resolution. We ended up with a group of approximately 25 stakeholders. And remember, these were students, teachers, staff, administrators, parents, and community members. We held virtual input sessions. We started at a more general overview of what the resolution should include and how it would be certain that it would reflect the voices of those participating in the process. We also received feedback from participants who could not join us for editing sessions. We held several of these sessions via Zoom, and so we incorporated their feedback as well. As time went on, after several meetings, we asked volunteers from each individual stakeholder group to meet in a smaller group to work on editing the resolution line by line. This small group represented all of the stakeholder groups. At times in our small editing group, we spent a great deal of time discussing and questioning an individual line in the resolution. And I'm not exaggerating when I say there were times that we spent just as much time on a single word in this resolution. We wanted to make sure that all of the words coming forth represented the intent of this group. After all of the details were agreed upon, Sarah Wheelock brought her editing and legal expertise to the document and spent a great deal of time checking proper phrasing, punctuation, and grammar. With the finished document in hand, we invited all of the original stakeholders involved to join us together and come full circle to ensure that the work done by this smaller editing committee fully captured the intent of every single person involved. A few important notes for those listening. We did consult with Paula O'Loughlin at MSBA, our state school board association, to gain clarity on the role of a board resolution, as this is not something that we frequently bring forth on our own in our district. She was very helpful and gave us the guidelines we needed. We clarified with stakeholders, and for those who are listening tonight for your benefit, the role of a school board is to govern. The role of the superintendent and her staff is to manage and implement. A resolution is a formal document that makes a statement about an issue so important that the board wants a record of it. It also stands as a public record in case compliance with the resolution becomes an issue down the road. If a school board drafts a resolution, it should be supported with action steps and concrete guidelines in later steps. This can be through specific board policies or through implementation plans established by administration, staff, and teachers. Throughout the process, stakeholder input will be essential. A resolution is a firm but governing type of statement. It is not a list of specific actions. So tonight with this resolution, we are building upon our commitments in our strategic plan and priority work that have already been underway. We have been updating the entire board as we go along and getting direction to move forward. We've received guidance from the Minnesota School Board Association. And since meeting with you on November 23rd, we've taken all of your feedback back to the editing committee and discussed it among ourselves as a committee. So all concerns and suggestions were reviewed. The document we will vote on this evening is the same as the one presented on November 23rd, with the exception of a small edit in the second to last therefore statement based on board feedback on the 23rd. I would like to thank the committee, Enrique, Stacy, and Dr. Stallo. They committed to moving this work forward, not only in spite of what is happening in the world, but because of what is happening in the world. This work was challenging, time-consuming, and intense, and it was also an opportunity to learn how to lean into conversations that can be uncomfortable. But I think I speak for the committee when I say that learning to stay with the work, even if at times uncomfortable, is the key for us to move forward. We thank our stakeholders who gave so much time to this process. We hope some of them are watching this evening. Thank you for taking time, often away from work, school, family, and more, to assist us. We are grateful to you. You helped us understand at a deeper level what meaningful and intentional community engagement and collaboration looks like. Not only were the results beyond what we could have initially imagined, we benefited from the rich relationships developed throughout the process. We thank you for the gift of your time, energy, wisdom, vulnerability, and commitment to the process. And we look forward to continuing the work called upon to do in this resolution. Thank you, and I'll pass it to Stacy.
Okay, I get to follow that. Which was an excellent
I
summary.
was the one to give the
And she was,
introduction.
yes, that was why Michael took the summary, and she did an excellent job. I would encourage anyone in the public to listen back on the study session. We did have extensive conversation on this, and I'll just summarize some of my comments. Since being on the board since 2011, I can honestly say that this is probably the work that I'm most proud of. It was truly an honor and a privilege to be able to work with our subgroup. They trusted us with their stories, many which had pain involved, their hopes and their dreams. I know they wanted to be here tonight, which obviously because of COVID they can't. But I do feel their presence here. I do feel that this document is a true representation of their words, and that's why we've so carefully have managed those words and kind of, I want to say, caressed and kind of, and like Michael said, we've spent many times being careful not to change the intent of the wording due to how much we know people put into this. So I do really, I'm very thankful for the committee. And like I said, this isn't a one-stop shop for me. This is, for me, a living document that will go forward in every decision that we look at forward for the district. And what this does is really, for me, creates a pathway forward of how I'm going to look at things very differently than I have in the last 10 years. So, thank you. And I'll hand it over to Enrique.
All right, thank you. Yeah, a couple of tough acts to follow. Let me start by saying how incredibly proud I am of this committee. Proud of the collective work and energy and of the stakeholders who gave so much of their time, their energy, and their talents to partner with us in shaping this extremely important document. More than a document, this is a vehicle that will propel us as a board and as a district to continue challenging assumptions, continue to confront the biases that we possess, and continue embodying the change that we want to see reflected as a community so that all learners can continue to thrive and achieve to their absolute fullest potential. This is how important this document is to me and to many others within the community, and it's an absolute honor to have been a part of this process with every single one of you. Thank you.
Okay.
I just want to, I'm sorry, but I just want to add,
Terry,
no
yes, you wanted to
worries.
speak.
I want to
I
echo the
forgot that.
thanks of the board members. And our district theme this year is We Are PLSAS Voices. And it was the voices of our community members sharing their lived experiences that really brought forward the importance of this board resolution, setting the direction and vision of the work that we will continue to do to be a welcoming, inclusive, and just district. Our mission calls us to ensure that we educate all learners. And while we work toward this mission every day, we know that is evidenced by our achievement scores as well as the lived experiences of some of the students in our district. We're not there yet. This resolution will help keep equity, inclusion, and ensuring that all means all at the center of our table. I've never been part of a more inclusive and authentic process, and I am so proud of the school board for leaning into this really difficult work and for showing up for all of our students and all of our families. It will take strong and bold leadership moving forward to ensure that the words on this paper are turned into action to truly ensure that that mission comes to life for all of our students. So thank you all.
Once again,
Can
I'll
we
say,
place it on the screen so everyone can see it?
I'm going to read it. I don't know that we can put it on the screen. I'm not sure. No, I'm going to read the resolution. I am going to repeat, though, that I'm still envious. Anxious to be part of a future group. Looking forward. The resolution is as such: Prior Lake Savage Area Schools' commitment to equity and inclusion. Whereas the learning and safety of the students of Prior Lake Savage Area Schools is our top priority and is our responsibility to create a safe, secure, and inclusive environment for all learners, which requires that we promote equity and inclusion for all people, notwithstanding race, ethnicity, gender, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, linguistic diversity, socioeconomic status, or membership in any other protected class. And whereas providing a safe and inclusive school environment that ensures the physical and emotional safety of students and staff creates the conditions necessary to foster academic achievement. And whereas Minnesota, including Prior Lake Savage Area Schools, consistently has one of the largest opportunity gaps in the country, and whereas the Minnesota Department of Education states, educational equity is a condition of justice, fairness, and inclusion in our systems of education so that all students have access to the opportunities to learn and develop to their fullest potentials. And whereas the concept of educational equity goes beyond formal equality, where all learners are treated the same, providing a barrier-free environment where all students have the resources and opportunities to succeed, notwithstanding their race, ethnicity, gender, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, linguistic diversity, socioeconomic status, or membership in any other protected class. And whereas the district's strategic plan commits us to increase measurable student learning and reduce opportunity gaps as we provide equitable student opportunities through personalized learning and student engagement. And whereas District Policy 413 dictates that the district maintain a learning and working environment that is free from harassment and violence on the basis of race, color, creed, religion, national origin, sex, age, marital status, familial status, status with regard to public assistance, sexual orientation, or disability. And whereas racism and implicit bias manifest in myriad ways, including but not limited to hate speech, open hostility, and bigotry, systematic and institutionalized practices and policies, microaggressions, colorblind ideology, willful ignorance, and unconscious bias in decision-making, each of which has the effect of negatively impacting Black, Indigenous, and people of color and members of other marginalized groups. And whereas discrimination, hate, bias, and racist incidents against Black, Indigenous, and people of color and members of other marginalized groups harm them mentally, physically, emotionally, and academically. Whereas the district strategic plan commits us to engage students, parents, families, staff, and community members to strengthen a culture of respect and inclusion. And whereas students, parents, families, staff, and community members have raised concerns about racism, equity, inclusion, and social justice, and expect board and district leadership to address these issues with intention. And whereas the leaders in Prior Lake Savage Area Schools, we are compelled to embrace an anti-racist stance and speak out in response to all forms of racism, discrimination, and bias that impact our students, parents, families, staff, and community. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Education of Prior Lake Savage Area Schools is fully committed to developing, sustaining an inclusive and anti-racist school community where all students, parents, families, staff, and community members are safe, welcomed, and valued, notwithstanding their race, ethnicity, gender, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, linguistic diversity, socioeconomic status, or membership in any other protected class. Commits to its own work as a board and as individuals, and to the training necessary to strengthen our collective ability and competence to oversee the district in becoming equitable, inclusive, and anti-racist in policies, beliefs, and actions. Affirms its commitment to support the superintendent in continuing to lead district priorities to advance equity and inclusion efforts, including but not limited to professional development opportunities, increasing equity access to a diverse workforce, and establishing a safe and secure environment that is free of implicit bias and is anti-racist for all people, notwithstanding race, ethnicity, gender, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, linguistic diversity, socioeconomic status, or membership in any other protected class. Encourages and supports our educators and staff as they seek to adapt instructional practices, incorporate restorative justice practices, expand their own understanding of anti-racism and implicit bias, and develop their skill sets and mindsets to respond more effectively to the needs and aspirations of all the learners they serve and demonstrate their belief in the value of each student. Commits as a board and as individuals to viewing and analyzing all of our work on behalf of the district through both a racial and cultural equity lens and a social justice lens, and reforming current policies should they not be aligned with the vision presented in this resolution. We'll create more opportunities to elevate and listen to the voices of students, parents, families, staff, and community members who are Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and members of other marginalized groups, and partner with them to identify and eliminate barriers that can interfere with opportunities to excel, and will commit to being accountable to achieving the vision established in this resolution. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
So made.
By Stacy, second?
Second.
By
Second.
Mary. Are there any other any other comments?
Yes, I'd like to comment.
Go ahead,
Mrs.
Melissa.
Melissa. So we've got a few different things. I know that earlier tonight, Michael, you mentioned it's not about passion, or you said that it was about passion, and I would say it's not about passion. It's about doing the right thing, doing what's right. Some observations that we see here through the community with this statement as it becomes in front of the community. I guess they ask, is this the role of the board? We're into social justice here, and we're redefining our district policies, it's stating. And these things, many times, there was 3 different paragraphs. Those things are all covered in both federal and state law. Our parents and our community, they need to feel confident, I guess, that academic excellence is not being threatened by a political ideology. This is really putting people in boxes. It's identity politics, and it's a socio-political experiment, if you will. It's asking of our teaching staff a major shift in their teaching approach to active social justice work. Consequently, the teachers, are asked to come up with become social activists dedicated to changing their schools from the top, from the ground up. I mean, they're asked to view each student in each situation, even misbehavior, through the cultural lens, and we're going to be allowing this into our policies. Frankly, it's an indoctrination in the public school, and our students and our teachers are going to be part of this, and it's really reprehensible. It's very divisive. It's very polarizing in its attempt, and it includes training. And there's no evidence. We've had some of this training already through Dr. Shraki Holly. There's been no evidence to say that has provided any closing of any racial gap. We need to be uplifting everyone, all people, and that life doesn't require us to move up at the expense of others. Some of this training that we've had, and this is going to elaborate on it, it talks about white privilege, and we have American privilege, and it's a privilege to live in America. privileged to be an American citizen, frankly, and one that we fought for every day. So that's the passion, staying clear of social justice, because that's really not the role of our board. I think we have really a few members of the board that are clearly pushing an agenda here, a social justice agenda, frankly. I have never, nor has anyone else on our board as board director, ever pushed their own personal agendas. And it can't be allowed. You know, it's an attempt to indoctrinate our kids into this social ideology. It's not in the best interest of educating our kids, frankly. And we need to take another look at that. Don't know what the end game is, frankly.
Would you like a response to that, or are there more questions first?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've got a few folks that they're placing this on a committee that was, I guess it's been redefined, this committee that we've had for many, many years, into social justice committee. Our community engagement committee. It was a way to help the community understand what the board does, and that we're overseeing in our governance. And then we focus on policy, we focus on academics, and we supervise the superintendent. And now we've gotten into the social justice realm here. And it's very concerning. I'm hearing from the community, and they're shocked.
Melissa, did you have a chance to listen to the November 23rd session?
I did, and I talked with other board members.
Okay.
But I saw the policy previously.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. So you're saying the community is shocked. Why we went out and got the large number of stakeholders we did is because we did get the message that a number of families and students in our community are not getting what they need, and we aren't best serving them. There's nothing about this that is an indoctrination or a political statement or a personal agenda. In fact, to make sure it wasn't, that's why we went out to such a large stakeholder group, because it started out as a small group of committees members, and then we invited other people in who are most directly impacted and shared very honestly. So we had students of color, teachers of color, people from other marginalized group invited, sharing their experiences and where they struggled. And so I know we couldn't all listen to those stories, but if you had, you would see where we're failing. I understand what you're saying, and there's this fear over using terms like white privilege, which is not in our document, but we have to be careful, because if we assume that we're going to treat everybody the same, what we're doing is putting our experience as white people onto the experience of other people who have not had the same benefits or privileges that we have had over time. I don't know how much opportunity you've had to read some of the scholarship or research on this, but we did do that prior to this work as well, to better understand what that terminology means, how it's used, and how we need to be aware of that to best serve all of our students. This is not a social justice sort of asking our teachers to become activists in the schools by any means. It's a way of, this work is already being done for our teachers and through our administrative staff. It's a way for the board to say that we will not stand for this sort of treatment of our students, that we will look for ways to serve all of our students, and that we will do a better job listening to our stakeholders in this area and elevate their voices where they have not been elevated before. And we know from hours of meetings with these people what those stories are. These were not fabricated by a small committee on the board to bring forward. Our work has always been to find ways to engage the community. This has been on our agenda for a long time. It was slowed by the pandemic, and we updated the board every step of the way, and we're always given direction by the board to proceed with our work. So I don't know if that answers some of your questions, or if my other committee members would also like to speak to that.
I guess I'd like to first caution everyone that we went through this presentation with members of the community and had a fairly long discussion and heard their stories, heard their concerns, their experiences, which I think was very honorable that they were willing to share with the board in a public setting. If we could have had them all here tonight, I think, Melissa, you would have heard that. I think we all would have heard from them again, rather than from the board members. But hate to use the excuse of the pandemic, but that's the reality why they're not here and why our board members have had to take a larger role in presenting this resolution. I don't see this as political. I see it as trying to educate all learners, whatever background they come from, whatever color, anything. And I don't mean to sound anti-racist right now, but everybody deserves a good education. And I think that this is a major step in doing that. And we did discuss it at length at the work session earlier that you weren't able to attend. You might have gotten a better feel for what their purpose is and where they're really coming from. So does
I was
anyone
able
else
to
have,
get the information.
excuse me,
I had a
Melissa, does
family
anyone else have any
emergency.
other comments before Melissa speaks again?
I do.
I'll just end by saying, it's good that we had
Melissa?
clarity around our differences. That's all I was
Melissa,
going to
it's
say.
someone else's turn to speak. You're not being recognized
I
right
would-
now to speak.
I was just going
Mary?
to say it's glad that we have clarity around our differences. That's all.
Melissa.
Thank you.
Mary?
Well, I just want to say that nothing in this is an indoctrination. If anything, it's long overdue. And I think the key words in here are not just about the students themselves or how we categorize them. The key word for me was barrier-free, and that's the word that I actually asked to be italicized. And that's what this is about, because we have traditionally created barriers unknowingly, and sometimes knowingly in the history. But this statement here and this particular commitment is something that should have been done years ago. And I personally am very, very proud of the fact that it's written out and that we are doing this now. And again, if it is read thoroughly, there's nothing in here that is any way, shape, or whatever actually making our teachers do anything they shouldn't have already done with all of our statements and our actual vision and mission of this district.
Stacy, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I mean, I think, this is just really the board affirming its commitment. I think, administration has already gone down this, is working on this and doing things. I don't expect this to really, change the direction of where they're going. This is just to affirm what they're doing and to affirm our commitment to our community, to our full community, that everyone has value, and we need to serve everyone. And the stories we heard, we weren't serving everyone or haven't been. And so, not intentfully, obviously, but we need to change things. And I think this gives that voice and direction to move forward.
Jonathan? Did you have anything to add?
Short and sweet, thank you to the participants, especially the folks from the community and the board members for the time and the effort that was put into this. I will enthusiastically support this. In my view, it is a starting point, and the way that we honor your work is to keep this resolution at the forefront of our decision-making going forward.
Enrique, did you have anything to add?
He did, he's looking, I think, or maybe he's frozen.
Rose?
Did he freeze?
He might be frozen. Enrique? Oh, no, I saw him move.
He blinked.
Yeah. Oh, there you are.
There you are, okay.
Okay. You were frozen.
Did you have anything to add, Enrique?
Oh, sorry, last thing I heard was Jonathan speaking, then it just went dead.
Okay.
We went dead.
No, I try to take an academic point of view of this and try and separate my own personal experiences and my own passion here. And I just want to underscore that we have a mission and a responsibility to educate all learners in a barrier-free environment. So those are kind of the two big concepts we have here. We can look at it academically and see from standardized testing and other elements that we use to measure performance and measure success. There is a population within our community that they're not hitting those milestones. So we need to adapt. We need to adapt our practices. We need to explore other ways to educate all of those learners so that we can reach them in a responsible, in a meaningful way to that helps them get to where they need to be so that they can be their very best.
Okay, as I said before, this was, did you have anything else to add? Okay, as I said before, this was discussed at our work session. Tonight, we're looking for approval. I would ask the board to respect the work of the school board committee that we have agreed to have go forward with this resolution. And I would agree that just as our mission statement and strategic plan is a living document, this should be part of that same living document as we go forward in the district. It's not meant to be something we put on a shelf. In order for it to be effective, it needs to be front and center, just like our mission. With that, I have a motion and a second, so I will take a roll call vote. Mary?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
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 Melissa?
Nay.
Enrique?
Aye.
That motion carries 6-1. Thank you. Thank you so much for your work. At this point, if there are any public comments coming from the community for the truth and taxation, and I'm hearing there are none, so we will move on to new business with a construction update. This is a report only. Maureen's coming forward.
Dr. Stallo, Chair Schimick, members of the board, standing in for Jim Delwo tonight with a construction update. As we approach the opening of the last additions at the high school and the end of the vast majority of the bond work, I'd just like to start with an overview of the physical changes to our district since 2018. We opened 2 new buildings, Bridges ALC and Hamilton Ridge Elementary. So the district now owns and manages 13 buildings. And for 48 outbuildings. 10 of our existing buildings have had major additions, remodels, interior and or exterior repairs, and or mechanical projects completed. We've acquired 12 acres of land. That puts us at a total of 323.6 acres of land that we manage. Since 2018, we've added a total of 336,806 square feet to our district. That is larger than one of the districts I worked at. For a current total, I know, for a current total of 1.68 million square feet of conditioned space. That is just an amazing number. Our current construction work continues. Greenwood, the contractors are wrapping up a small number of items throughout the building. The HVAC digital controls are scheduled for completion on the 22nd, and architectural and mechanical punch list work is ongoing there. At the high school, the final additions, Tower D and the Commons additions, will be online soon. Our district custodians are doing the construction cleaning of the new spaces this week and next. We expect to save $15,000 to $18,000 by having our teams do it, and we do a better job. So, December 17th, we have the occupancy inspection for Tower D and the Commons addition. That'll be a big day, a big milestone. Remaining furniture delivery and installation begins on the 21st. Contractors are wrapping up a number of projects throughout the building. The punch list work there is and will be ongoing for quite a while yet. At Hamilton Ridge, the architectural mechanical punch list work is just about complete. At Bill Pearson Field, formerly SS9, we found some issues with how the field was prepped before seeding, and it will need to be redone in the spring. At Glendale, the HVAC digital controls project is 98 complete, right on schedule. We have ongoing punch list work and follow-up at both middle schools, at Bridges, and at the other elementary schools that we've worked on since 2018. And that punch list work and follow-up will go on for a while yet. So it's a lot of accomplishment in the last years, and many thanks to our community for supporting that work. Any questions?
Anyone have any questions? Mary?
Question, I've noticed from the funding that we are just about at zero break-even point with the rest of the funds. So I think by February, the graph that was presented in the financials is that we will have used up the remainder of the referendum funds. Is that a true statement?
I would have to either defer that question to either Jim or to Julie Sink. I'm sorry, I don't have the answer for that, Mary.
All right. And the reason why I was asking for that is I assume that the traditional construction punch lists are part of the service agreement to make sure things are done appropriately.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely, yes. We are diligent in our punch lists. It is there. The ones that we come up with are a little bit more expansive than the one the contractors made, but.
And for that, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm just making sure that we are not responsible for any redos or anything like that financially. Okay, so even though they may continue their punch list, we are not going to be.
Yeah, there are some ongoing issues that as we pursue every avenue for responsibility if it is a contractor-related issue.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Oh,
I just
Stacy?
wanted to give my thanks. I know it's been a long process, and it's great to see that it's culminating and finishing up, and I just appreciate everyone's efforts. I know you and Jim were at the forefront of getting a lot of this pushed through and done and on time and doing crazy things, so thank you. It's been a big team of people involved, so thank you.
I just want to add my thanks. The last piece that you talked about over winter break, that your crews will be doing much of the construction cleanup at a cost containment and savings of the district to, I think you said $18,000. I recognize that is over winter break, which is not going to be a break for you and your team, just as I don't know how much of a break any of you have had since May 16th because of all of the extra COVID-related needs that your staff has undertaken, as well as all of the construction projects. So I just want to, again, express my gratitude to you, Jim, and your teams for really unbelievable work. Thank you.
Thank you. The credit definitely goes to the operations team. There, we have great staff. So, thanks.
Thank you. We'll move on to the 2020 payable 2021 final levy. That presentation took place earlier this evening. Do I have a motion to approve that levy?
So made.
By Stacy, second?
Second.
By Jonathan. Any comments or questions? Or Julie, did you have anything else to add? Okay, that's a roll call vote. Mary?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Aye. Jonathan?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Enrique?
Aye.
That motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Then we'll move into the 2021 final budget approval. This presentation took place earlier this evening as well. Do I have a motion to approve the final budget?
So made.
By Jonathan, second?
Second?
By Michael. Any questions, comments?
Just want to confirm, because I was a little confused about what we're actually approving. We're approving the 2021 totals that she presented, that were presented
2021,
earlier.
yep.
Okay, just, yeah, okay, thank you.
Yep, 2020, 21.
2020, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no questions, that's a roll call vote. Mary?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Stacy, aye.
Aye.
Jonathan? Melissa?
Aye.
Enrique?
Aye.
That motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Julie. Now we'll move on to new course proposals. Just in time, you walked in. You must have been listening.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Dr. Stello, Chair Shimmick, board members. We have just a couple new course proposals for the 21-22 school year. As per the process, these are brought first to the building level, where teachers or other staff can bring them to the site administrator for review. They then go to the District Curriculum Advisory Committee for review, discussion, and input. And then they are presented to the school board. The school board takes action, and if they are approved, they are included in the registration guide for the next school year. They don't start curriculum development or resource purchasing or anything like that until we have enough students who've registered. So the biggest one we have this year is MinCaps is adding a new pathway. And we're really excited about this. It's been something Eric, Sil, Mr. Holmberg, and the team has been working on for quite a few years to try to get this off the ground, and it's a trades pathway. And so this is a pathway that's focused on construction. It will be housed at Prairie Lake High School using some of the Fab Lab equipment and space there instead of at the MinCaps site. And it's focused on these courses you'll see there. As always in MinCaps, it's not just individual course standing in isolation. The students learn the skills in actual practice, doing actual things, and applying the skills with professionals from the field. So the MinCaps Trades Pathway, it's a construction pathway, and it features Woods 4, pre-college algebra, and interpersonal communication in the first semester, and that interpersonal communication is articulated for college credit as well. Semester 2 has advanced manufacturing, college algebra, and composition, and that's all. Those last two are articulated as well. So like MinCaps, one of the features of a lot of courses there is students can earn college credits while learning and earning high school credits as well. At Hidden Oaks and Twin Oaks, we just have one minor revision to a course that came before the DCAC, and it's really a revision from Photoshop art being purely named Photoshop to be focused more on graphic design, so that students have the ability and can have the opportunity to learn other graphic design tools as well. In other updates, we are, as Dr. Stella mentioned in the study session, we are planning expanded online and hybrid course offerings for next year. We have applied and will be applying to be an online course provider at both the elementary, middle, and high school level. More details to come on that for sure in the future, but that is something we are planning to expand. And another brief update on the Dakota language program. Several of you have been involved in that, and we've been working with the SMSC on a collaborative project for the past couple months. Karina Lyons and I just recently have been meeting with 2 reps from the SMSC quite a bit to try to work out some HR issues about where the teacher is housed, how they're paid, things like that. We were at the point of creating a course description to be included in the registration guide when, very unfortunately, an elder in the SMSC passed away. And that elder was also one of the leaders in Dakota language revitalization, both in the state and the region. And so for that and some other reasons, the SMSC wants to take just a brief pause and take a year to kind of figure some things out, to get some other things worked out. We are still very positive on the project, as is SMSC, but we are looking to start in the 22-23 school year rather than next year. But we will spend the time working with SMSC on curriculum development, resource development, and hammering out some last details, but still a project we're really, really excited about. Any questions? Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Stacy.
Just on the trades, pathway, so you said it's gonna be housed at the high school.
Yes.
So then, like English electives, that'll just be at the high school in the classroom, like normal classroom? It's not gonna be, they're not going back and forth from?
They're not going to be, it's really those construction classes that are going to be using those materials. I believe the other ones may be at MinCaps, or they may be just in a more flexible space in that kind of area down
In
where
that shop area?
Yep,
whatever?
in that
Okay.
shop area, right.
Okay, I was just curious as to how it's gonna be set up and,
Yeah, I mean, basically it's so we don't have to set up another fab lab or
Right.
construction lab somewhere else.
right, makes sense. Did we try this one last year?
No, this is
Okay.
new, actually. The education pathway came
Oh,
up
it was
last year, and
last
that's
year.
running now, which is
Okay.
really great too.
Yep.
So they're doing great, expanding, and kids love the experience.
With the education, you're saying?
With the education, with all the
I know
pathways.
that took a couple times, right?
It did.
So, before it actually hit, I'm just wondering, has there been initial interest with trades? I mean, I know people have been talking about it for a while. I would hope that that's something that we could get off the first year, but,
I'm hoping so too. My feeling and my guess is that there's some pent-up interest in this one.
Yeah.
With the education pathway and some others, there's kind of social interest that develops, once
Yep.
3 or 4 kids tell their friends and tell their friends, then it takes off. But my guess and my hope is that there's some pent-up interest.
is this gonna be around 20 that we're gonna need, 20 kids, or not a little flexible?
About, hopefully, a little more than that, but
Okay, but for a minimum,
high school,
I'm
yeah.
talking for a minimum. Yeah, okay, all right, good. I'm excited to see that happen.
Any
and
other
we are
questions?
requesting board action on this.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
Kevin, I
Mary?
had a 2-part question. The first one is, if we don't get as many students in there, would it be possible to continue the pathway but just integrate the current Woods class, et cetera, with the other existing students who don't want to be on the pathway and still get it off the ground? Is that an opportunity, or is that something that's not allowed because it's the pathway?
I would have to talk and really defer to Eric Sill for that. Usually the courses, the teachers work together in a little different ways, and the courses are a little bit more flexible in terms of how they're scheduled, how their time is used, assignments, things like that. So I would have to defer to Eric if that were to be the case, but it's perhaps possible.
Well, assuming we do get enough kids to sign up for the program, will they get the same type of experience that the kids do at MinCaps, where they are in their own group then, for all 3 classes, or just for the actual tech ed classes?
I believe that's definitely the intention, in that the courses will be scheduled kind of in that block format that MinCaps uses, which gives them a little more flexibility to integrate local experts and experts from the field and have more extended time for projects. So I believe they will be kind of operating on that MinCap schedule.
Okay, and then with regards to the Dakota language program, first of all, I'm very sad to hear that the cultural liaison and the language teacher that I think they used at the Cultural Learning Center there is the one that passed away. Yeah. And that was, one of the things that I had talked to them about was what the Bedote School does also, and kind of borrowing from that curriculum. Did that ever come in, or is that something that's useful?
We are working with Will Crawford and Andrew Big from the SMSC. They have some ideas and some plans around actually publishing their own resources. Okay. And making them available both across the state and perhaps regionally as well. So I think we'll build from there. Okay. And kind of put our heads together.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are there any other questions? Jonathan?
Excited about the trades path a couple of years ago at the community review of the strategic plan. I had a gentleman enthusiastically ask me, what are we doing to prepare kids to go into the trades? And talking about it, I know I was able to introduce him to Jeff at the time, who kind of took the conversation from there. That was good. So I feel as though this is responsive to things we're being asked to do for the community, and I think that's always a good thing. My question is, do you have adequate participation from employers? Are you looking for those folks people to come in to be involved? Jeff's got a, sounds like a comment.
That's a great question, because as you know, that's essential for our CAPS program, and certainly something we want to embed into more traditional high school courses as well, the mentorships and the partnerships. Last year, we had a Taste of the Trades event where we invited employers in, construction, just talking about what we were trying to create, and then more importantly, what are the types of experiences and classes we should be offering to students to help them prepare for a career in trades or to pursue a career in trades. Since that time, we've had a lot of interest in employers reaching out, willing to mentor, some material-based things. You may recall earlier this year as a board, you accepted a donation from a cabinetry company for cubicle spaces. And so that is something that, partners are looking to help us in more ways in addition to helping students. And so we do have, we have a lot of interest in partnerships. And I think that, again, to Dr. Schuttinger's point, we do have, I think, kids that are ready to do this, are ready to pursue this. We've got instructors that are really committed to this type of experience and really do a great job working with students in that setting. So we have every indication to believe that we're going to have interest there, and we're going to move forward with it next year. But sometimes that can happen with trades. Yeah, that can happen with trades, or it can happen with MinCaps, and so you have to build that energy around it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, I don't believe I have a motion yet.